Riley, how was camp?
It's the apocalypse!
It was good.
Everybody's favorite randomly pausing kid is back in Inside Out 2. So before I give my thoughts on this movie, I should talk about what I thought of the first Inside Out. If you've watched my channel, you're probably aware it's my favorite Pixar movie. It is one of my favorite Disney movies of all time. I think it is so well handled. It is brilliantly done. I love how emotional, psychological, creative, and character-driven it is. It is absolutely one of my all-time favorite Disney movies. So you might imagine I've been pretty hyped up for this sequel. This is one of the few Disney films where I actually said I want to see a sequel to this. I think there's a lot of possibilities for it. We see so many sequels from Disney that are not needed and usually don't result in anything that great. It's very, very rare. And with this one, I really thought, man, we could just watch this character grow up. As long as they use the same care as they did in the first film, this could really turn out a really, really great series. And I will admit, I was a little skeptical because the film's director, Pete Docter, wasn't returning for this one. He does have an executive producer credit, but he's not directing it, so I was a little skeptical, but I'm happy to report this is one of the rare sequels that not only matches the original, but might even surpass it. This is truly a return to form for Disney. They're going back to focusing on character and innovation as opposed to statistics and playing everything too safe and familiar. And if you're thinking to yourself, well, wait, in a sequel they're doing that? Well, that's one of the things that makes this movie so special. They do have callbacks to the original, but the story does evolve. We do go to different parts of the mind, and we are introduced to new ideas, we're introduced to new characters, we're introduced to new problems, and they're all problems and characters and ideas that are relatable, extremely relatable.
Hello! I'm Anxiety. Where can I put my stuff?
Surprisingly, an emotional baggage joke isn't used there. The first film dealt very much with the challenges of moving to a new location. This one deals very much with the challenges of making friends, making new friends, still keeping a strong friendship with your old friends. And I feel like anyone that has grown up with these challenges, which is basically everybody, they're gonna find a lot to connect to in this story. There's a lot of times where I was watching this thinking to myself, yeah, I was that kid. I was that kid that always got stressed out about fitting in and whether or not I would say the right thing or the wrong thing. And sometimes I would have a lot of friends around me. Sometimes I would have no friends around me. I mean, we moved around a lot, so Riley's a very easy character to relate to for me. And even if you're not someone that's moved around a lot, everybody's gone through change, and everybody's gone through a change in relationships, whether it's with your friends or family. There's even a really funny scene where they show the islands, you know, all the things that really, really matter to them. They're looking at them, they say, oh, where's the family island? Oh, there it is. It's very, very tiny. They have to use like these binoculars to see it. But there's the friendship island, and it's 10 times bigger. Like, clearly that's gonna take more focus at this point in a kid's life. And I heard some people speculating that Anxiety was gonna be a villain in this, and I'm just like, no, this series is way too smart for this. I knew they weren't gonna do that, and they don't. Anxiety is an antagonist in this, but she is not trying to do any harm. Everything comes from the best intentions, which again kind of falls in suit with what happened in the last film, where all of them have the best intentions, but they don't always do the right thing, and therefore Riley doesn't always do the right thing. She's a very flawed character. I think she represents a lot of the flawed elements in our own lives.
This is Joy, coming to you live in Riley's mind.
If you too hear voices in your head, you're not crazy, it's apparently cute. I always like the question, are the emotions making the decisions, or is she making the decisions for the emotions? You kind of say, well, the emotions are calling all the shots. Yeah, but where are they getting those ideas? Where are they saying, hey, we should feel this right now, or we should do this? I mean, they're getting it from her, so they kind of feed into each other. And I think this movie kind of plays a little bit more into that. There's a new idea they introduce called the belief system. And what I really like is that it looks different from everything else in the rest of Riley's mind. Riley's memories are these very clear crystal balls that move through this kind of factory setup. Everything's very organized, but the belief system looks a little bit more like that door from Lord of the Rings that shines in the moonlight. It's a little bit more blooming. It's a little bit more plant life. I think that's the perfect way that should look. It shouldn't look as as industrial or factory-like. It really should look like something that is growing, that's a bit more spiritual, that has a little bit more of an abstract design. A lot of the film is focusing on keeping that in check.
We gotta get our mouth guard, people!
Fear. No, that's not ours. Disgust. Glad to have her on our team.
Even if her and Fear sound a little different. There's a few moments where I thought, oh, they're gonna repeat what they did in the first film here. They're just gonna do that moment again, and they really don't. They'll hint that maybe they are, but then they very cleverly say, no, that's not gonna get the characters out of it this time. Unlike the first film, where it's mainly following joy and sadness, which made sense for that story, all the characters go on the journey this time. You have fear and disgust and anger along for the ride, and seeing their collective reactions to everything adds a lot more comedy. I actually thought the comedy in this one was a lot better than in the first one. The comedy in the first one is fine, but I didn't think it was really the strongest point, where in this one I was laughing very hard at several scenes. There's one involving a secret memory. Actually, there's a couple secret memories that are really quite hilarious in this. And there's a callback to one of them in the last third that is another one of those moments where when they did this funny bit with it, I had to just, like bite my finger because I was laughing so hard and everyone else had stopped laughing and I was, shut up, come on, the scene is over, move on. There are some moments in this that are that funny. Seeing how this is about the emotion of anxiety taking over, I guess it's not really a surprise that there can be a lot of anxious moments in this. There is a lot of anxiety in this film, and again, if you've ever grown up trying to make connections with friends and other people, you're gonna feel very similar anxiety watching this, and it's very well handled. It shows what happens when it gets out of control, but there's really, again, no villain in it, and there's really no one to blame. You sort of just say, okay, this is a part of growing up. You're gonna make these mistakes.
Yeah. That's not gonna haunt us for the rest of our lives at all.
Something Disney said a lot last year. There's a very funny scene where the puberty construction workers come in, they start knocking everything down, and then they leave halfway through the job and everything's just destroyed. And when the emotions try to activate the emotions, everything is just magnified. They say, I barely touched the emotion. Where's that coming from? It is so clever, and it is so authentic to what I think so many people go through growing up. The resolution at the end is very well handled. I like how all the original emotions and the new emotions kind of play a big part in balancing things out again without giving away too much. If I had to nitpick anything in the movie that I feel like didn't quite click, one is one of the emotions called envy. I feel like you could have cut out and not miss anything. In the original film, I almost felt the same way about fear and disgust. I didn't feel like they had that much input, but in this film they do have a lot more input, so maybe if they make a third film, envy will have more of a role in it.
Look at your hair. Oh yeah, not happening.
You do not just touch a green person's hair. Zootopia explored this. Also, literally the last second, I'm not even kidding, the last second of the film, I had a little bit of an issue with. I think a lot of this movie is dealing with no matter what happens, there's gonna be fallout from it, reactions to it, and when you make mistakes, that's fine, but there are consequences to it. And while they don't quite say what happens at the end of this, they hint very loudly at what's happening, and it's not something I was really satisfied with. I think in a film that's really talking about don't be afraid of the outcome, just accept it for whatever it is, I thought this outcome was just a little too perfect, a little too nicely wrapped up. But everything else it's talking about not only tackles what I think a lot of people have gone through or are going through in a very clever, creative way, but it also ties into a lot of character. When joy gets sad, what does that say? When anger has sympathy, what does that say? It's showing that there are layers to these emotions. They're not just one-note characters. And I just find that so great in telling people that yes, there are things that can be simplified, but even in that simplification, there's a lot of complexities, and in those complexities there's a lot of simplification and blah blah blah. There's so many layers to it. It is just so good. I'm really glad that not only did I see it at a time when Disney has really been in a slump and really need a comeback. If I'm right, I don't think I liked any of the movies from 2023 last year. I didn't hate them all, but I don't think I really enjoyed any of them. So to finally have one that's not only good, but it's a sequel to my favorite Pixar movie, and it's not only just as good, but might even be better, is really, really nice and is something that I think is really needed for Disney right now, and I really hope that both audiences and Disney as a studio take note of and say, man, we gotta really focus on why this worked and how we can bring this to more of our properties. So I'm easily giving it 4 out of 4 triple Denkums. I loved it from beginning to end, and honestly, I could use another sequel. I want to see this character grow up. I want to see more what they can do with this idea, because what they've done already has been so spectacular, and I think they can do even more. With that said, what were your thoughts? Did you love this film just as much as I did? Did you say, oh my god, Disney is back and this is the direction they should be going and it's just as good if not better than the original? Or did you say, nah, it's another Disney blunder, they're just trying to focus too much on sequels and this feels phoned in and they're just trying to do the same thing again? Or are you somewhere in between where you say, you know what, it's not perfect, but there's a lot of things about it that are really enjoyable and it's nice to see these characters again? Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you next time. Take care.